everyone. Welcome to LOCKBEARD PHENOMENA. How's everyone doing tonight? I thought tonight we would talk a little bit about the pterosaur sightings that have been reported in a lot of places, including my state. There have been pterosaur sightings right here in Oklahoma. And I don't know, I can't know if they saw what they thought they saw. My first thought would be that perhaps they saw a heron. You know, someone who's not used to seeing a lot of herons spots one in the sky. It's a pterosaur to them. But you know, you try to say that to a person, it makes people feel stupid to an extent if they've been fooled by something like that. So you gotta tread carefully, and you can't accuse them of lying because that, you don't know that they're lying. I mean, the fact is some of these people could have legitimately seen a pterosaur. Let's see who's here. We got Small Island Bigfoot, or Smallfoot, or Short Island Smallfoot. Made a little tongue twister there, didn't you? I'm going to guess that's Paul. Welcome. We got Aotearoa Cryptids. We got Joe from Western New York Bigfoot Investigation Group. And we got Mr. Lee 3PO. Let's see. Paul says, it's Pirate's Life for me. 15 men on a dead man's chest. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. Perhaps he's drinking already. Joe says just stopping by to say hello. Hit the like button. Well, thanks for the support, man. Mr. Lee's just yelling at me. Hello, Mr. Lee. Been hanging out for hours, huh, Paul? Oh, you do that to mess with him? Oh, I got you. So I guess y'all can bring up whatever aspects of the subject you like, and I might say some things about it. Because there's a lot of things with the dinosaurs that there's a certain group of people out there who are trying. They want very badly to convince people that humans and dinosaurs walk together, because if they can show that, then it would throw a monkey wrench into the whole idea that the Earth is it wouldn't throw a total monkey wrench. They think it will, but not necessarily. That the Earth is they don't like that they think the Earth is just thousands of years old, because somebody figured this up out of the Bible, right? Now, the Bible doesn't say that. It doesn't specifically say that anywhere in there. But somebody, every time someone tries to figure something out of the Bible, it ends up badly. Stop it. You guys got to stop it. You've caused a lot of problems doing this stuff. Like that one preacher, he keeps trying to predict the apocalypse, right? He did it this one time, and this lady didn't want her pets to suffer on the day of the rapture, so she had all her pets put down. Imagine how she felt the day that it was supposed to happen, and it didn't. And the guy, he just keeps repredicting, saying, well, I misfigured all this stuff. Dude, you didn't misfigure you just don't know. You're ignoring your own religious text. It says in there, no man will know the day or the hour. That's what it follow your own religious text. And even if man and dinosaurs did walk together, it doesn't necessarily prove what you're saying. It could just mean that some of them survived the extinction. And that's not a fantastic thing. That's not going to throw a monkey wrench into the whole concept of the Earth being billions of years old, because some things from that time did survive. Otherwise, there'd be nothing on the Earth right now. And when you're talking, you're trying to say, well, these things haven't changed. Therefore, look, there's been a lot of things that didn't do a lot of change since then. Look at turtles. Some of these turtle species today are very, very similar to the ones that were hanging out with the dinosaurs. And, not a lot of changes occurred because they are so highly adapted to certain ecological niches, and those ecological niches did not necessarily go away. Look at the crocodilians. Again, they existed back then. The only difference really in general seems a reduction in size, and not by too horribly much, really, in a lot of cases. Now, look at the crocodilians. They probably had a smorgasbord the day of the impact. You imagine how many dead things were laying around, and they are happy enough to eat them all. And when an alligator or a crocodile eats a really large meal, they can go a year without food. So even if the world is in chaos on land, the ocean protected a lot of these aquatic species, see? And then once all the meat's rotted away, a year later, that crocodile or alligator could just eat others of their own kind like they do today. They would have weathered through that, no problem. The coelacanth hasn't changed a lot, like a horseshoe crab. There's a bunch of different things that haven't changed a lot since that time because they were still able to find a niche to which they were perfectly well adapted to exist in all along. And did the dinosaurs all die out? No, there were some things that would go on to become birds. So this entire idea doesn't hold water at all. If you look at the footprints that they point to, do you see a trackway of human footprints in there? No. Occasionally you see a footprint of what they say is a human that somewhat resembles human, but it's as one of the tracks in a trackway for a dinosaur. So occasionally a dinosaur takes a step and maybe it accidentally makes the shape somewhat like a human. They're trying so hard to see human footprints in that what used to be mud, and it just isn't true. It's more of that pareidolia we see with the Sasquatch stuff. People want to see human shapes really, really badly. It's very beneficial for survival that you be able to recognize a human face out there. Let me see here. Joe says, Mr. Lee, just dropping from I'm a bit emotionally drained at the moment. Sorry to hear that, Joe. Hope everything's okay. Yeah, Paul. Let's see. Exactly, Joe. The Flintstones was not a documentary. Yeah. Mr. Lee's yelling, what? You done rocked Mr. Lee's world. Sharon Guys here, saying hello and to everybody. Paul says, Sharon, nothing small about me. LOL. So, are there any young Earthers here? I mean, are you prepared? I mean, I'm not going real hard on it necessarily. I wanted to be a little better prepared, and I just just couldn't find the time. But like I was gonna throw up some pictures and stuff, but you gotta, it takes time that you gotta attribute the author and all that stuff, and it takes a lot of time. So we'll just go without pictures, because it would be nice to show because artists kind of got to reconstruct what an animal may have looked like based on fossilized bones. So it's really hard to get it right. But they do the best they can. And if you look at an artist's rendition of what an ancient crocodile looked like and compare it to today, millions of years later, you'll be like, gosh, I don't think I would know the difference. In a lot of cases, you may not know the difference. Because they didn't have the pressures, the evolutionary pressures to change, and so they didn't need to. Whereas with other types of dinosaurs that turned into birds, I mean, they had a lot of pressure to change. Their entire landscape was devastated. And everything got smaller for a while because I would assume, there's lack of resources. There's not enough food. So smaller individuals would be able to survive better than bigger individuals. A lot of times the species will change to fit the conditions. I can't remember what island it was for one of island dwarfism you may have heard of. There was, they thought they had nailed down the date of the extinction of all the woolly mammoths, but a small population had survived. They were on an island, so they were somehow protected in that particular location from the devastation of the Younger Dryas impact. You're going to hear me mention Younger Dryas impact a lot. People haven't heard of this. I'm not talking about the dinosaur extinction. I'm talking about the 13,000 roughly years ago astronomical impact that messed up our world, killed somewhere in the neighborhood of 160 species of megafauna, things that humans were specialized for hunting. It changed our world forever, pretty quickly there. I think that led to agriculture, because we were like, damn, what do we eat? We had this plentiful food resource, these giant sloths. There were bigger bears around. There was these woolly mammoths. All these things, all gone. But back to the woolly mammoths, that on that island, they didn't have a lot of resources to survive on. So a bigger individual would have a much harder time getting enough food than a smaller individual. So smaller individuals would live and be more successful and be the ones that breed. And you ended up with this dwarf version of a woolly mammoth that survived for thousands of years after all other woolly mammoths went extinct. Something similar must have occurred with a lot of the dinosaur species and a lot of everything, really. I mean, the crocodilians got a little smaller and the turtles got a little smaller and so on. So let's see if anyone else has stepped in. No one else has stepped in. Let's see. Joe says, I accept the geological evidence that suggests the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. with that statement, I will say good night, folks. Love you all. You're the best. Good to see you, Joe. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time. So, the pterosaur. So, if these other animals were able to survive through the extinction, there's no reason to think it isn't possible that pterosaurs survived. Maybe I kind of wonder if they are, or at least the species that may have survived, maybe they are dwell in caves and cracks and the like, and were better protected, because they were already living in these protected niches. And so, I imagine most of them did die and went extinct, but maybe one or two species was able to weather the storm. And if their food source was still there, if they do like some birds do, they fly above the water and they dive down and they get fish and stuff. And if there were some fish that survived, and they're they could also be eating young crocodilians and turtles and stuff like that. So why not? This in no way, the survival of the pterosaurs, if they did survive, in no way supports young Earth ideology. But this group of people doesn't represent all religious people, but it's a subset, and because they are invested, because they've been hammering this idea that the Earth is only 5,000 or 6,000 years old. Now they got to save face, right? So they're looking for anything to save face. So when they look at that dinosaur track, it's clearly just a malformed track. It's in the trackway. It's one of the steps of something that's clearly dinosaur, but one of them just accidentally formed a human shape to it. There's your confirmation bias again. We see this with Bigfoot all the time and a lot of the other paranormal stuff. They want it to be a human footprint so badly that that's what they see. And, they're fooling themselves and they're making themselves look worse rather than admitting that maybe they were wrong and they latched onto an interpretation of the Bible that was incorrect. That they're sticking with it. They're going to dig in their heels, and unfortunately, they're out there convincing more people to believe this nonsense, and it is complete nonsense. Paul saying, Desatch, to remember the silver lining. What show Locke be a turtle Scott's Hool didn't even close to being as big as... I don't have any idea what you're saying, man. Turtles sure have. They ain't no Gamera. I don't know what Gamera is, man. Is that is that thing that Godzilla fought? Sharon Guy says to Paul, I don't have anything you sent me. Maybe you sent it to another Sharon Guy. My pick is me and my grandbaby standing by a big black Bigfoot. Danny's here. Greetings, Beard of Knowledge. Well, I don't know if I deserve all that. I don't know if I deserve all that. So so yeah, I mean, it isn't that I'm denying that the pterosaurs may have survived. I really hope they do. They're there. But it in no way supports young Earth creationism. It just doesn't. And I think other Christians who should be, talking to these people and saying, "Look, you're not doing anything good for our image." If we can't truly disprove the science, then we need to look at our interpretation of our religious text. But they just keep doing it. There was a case, I think it was like a triceratops bone, where they sent the bone to be tested, and they had tested it multiple places, but they had it carbon dated, right? And they're like, "Well, we got this date, and it's only 30. I think it was 33,000 years old. So some ridiculously small number." The problem is you can't use carbon dating to test dinosaurs. The half-life is too low, so you can't get an accurate number at all. You got to use a different isotope. There's many different types of radiometric dating, and different ones have different half-lives. So you need something with a longer half-life to test for something as old as a dinosaur and get anything remotely accurate. So if you know the half-life, like they can measure the half-life of different isotopes of different elements, and that tells them, that gives them their numbers. Let's see, has anybody else joined us? No one else joined us. See what Paul's saying. Greetings from South Carolina. It's on the cover. Daily Dan is Danny Stanton. So, I mean, has anyone here seen or known anyone who's seen a pterosaur? I liked dinosaurs since the youngest I can remember. It was, it's another type of monster. I liked all the monsters. Although, monsters maybe not the best word for it, but, it would be absolutely awesome if they were here. And it would really, it really tell us something about some types of life out there. Very, very reclusive animals, even bigger ones, can hide from us even today. I mean, so I can't remember. There's been animals found recently. They have no fossil record for at all. Like, they had no idea this thing would possibly be around. Because sometimes you see some fossils, and you're like, well, whatever this is, the youngest fossil we got is maybe 50,000 years old, so it only disappeared that far back. It's possible they're still out here, right? And then they may know to kind of just try to find it, try to look for it. But some of these animals they find, it's like they had no indication that they were there, because everything doesn't fossilize. It's it's got to have specific conditions for things to fossilize. Most of the time, this whole planet would be covered in bones if bones didn't disappear almost all the time. But then this gets us the people saying, well, there's a gap in the fossil record, and that throws no, it doesn't destroy fossil evidence. If you take the time to actually study the subject, you'll see. Okay, I can't do justice for it on freaking YouTube. Okay, but basically, the fossil record, it just reads like a book. It shows how things progressed and changed over time and branched out, and you start aging stuff, and you look at what rock strata they're in, and there's enough data where we can see very well that these animals changed over time, and plants, and it's just undeniable. That's just one line of evidence for evolutionary biology. You also got DNA. If you learn enough about genetics, you start to see that if you just woke up one day with no memory on a planet with nothing but one DNA molecule, and you had nothing else to do, so you just studied that molecule and what it does and what it's designed to do, you would predict evolution from that one molecule. Because when you see how DNA functions, what that molecule's properties are, you will know that evolution is undeniable just from the properties of the DNA molecule. It's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. And of course, our lives are too short to witness this. It's a process that takes place over such a long period of time. One individual can't witness it. That's why we need to look at fossil evidence and look at how DNA functions. But we have been able to see how selective breeding works. We know how to do that. We took wolves and turned them into I don't know how many breeds of dogs. And at this point, may have effectively created different species, even though they're still genetically compatible. So if you inseminate Chihuahua with wolf, that Chihuahua will get pregnant, but it probably won't survive the pregnancy. And in the wild, it wouldn't survive the breeding process, and it probably wouldn't get bred anyway because a Chihuahua would be killed by 1,000 things that wouldn't mess with a wolf, right? And even the wolf would probably kill a Chihuahua, But if Chihuahuas found somewhere they could live and survive and not all get eaten, they would effectively be genetically isolated from wolves. So, wait 1 million years, and the genetic differences between the two they'll start to move apart. Their differences in DNA to the point that even if the Chihuahuas started to increase in size over that time, by the time they came back across wolves again, they wouldn't work. The genetic differences would be too great. Let's see. Mr. Pat Turner, perhaps. I'm not sure what you mean. That's what I thought. I'm not. I used to love watching Godzilla as a kid, but now I can't watch it. It's too stupid. I did watch some of the newer movies, but I think like the last couple I haven't watched. It's just too damn stupid. And like the Kong and all that stuff, they try to make it scientifically plausible, but it don't work. But I loved it as a kid. And I loved turtles. I used to keep so many turtles for pets. I had a turtle pen in my backyard. We had a turtle race in my town, so I'd race a turtle every year, and I'd always be like, because the guys running the turtle race were just some dudes, right? They don't understand. You can't put a red ear slider in the center of the circle with box turtles. That don't work. Box turtles can't run. So they should only compete against other box turtles. But some smart ass would bring a red ear slider, and them suckers can move, especially if you put them on hot pavement. They'll get the heck out of there. I think the most box turtles I had in that pen, one year I had like 40. And I'd always release them in the fall so they could go and hibernate. And then there was one in particular that had a pattern of, I don't know if someone shot it multiple times in the shell, so it was easy to recognize her. And she found her way back to me a number of years. So she spent a number of different summers in my pen, even though she was released every year into the wild. And so she may still be crawling around Okmulgee County today. Mr. Lee says they found a pterosaur fossil in a quarry in Australia. Estimated wingspan is 7 meters, and the skull was 1 meter long. Yeah, some of them are pretty darn big, and some of them are very small. One that size would probably have a much harder time hiding till today than one of the smaller species, and of course, like I was talking about, not having adequate food, those bigger species probably all died out. So yeah, very interesting animals. 3 foot head, 3 foot head, 21 foot wingspan. Converting it to American over here. Or I can't remember what they call our system. Imperial or something. Not from Short Island. Yeah. Squatching Cowboy is in the house. Welcome. Paul's asking, how's the fine state of Texas? It's raining down there, huh? Mr. Lee says may have seen a pterosaur. You might have, you think? Line between people or primate? Yeah. Well, some people claim that there's been secret experiments done where they inseminated, either human women or chimpanzee females, with the other species, and that they were actually able to reproduce. I really doubt it because of the chromosome issue. They have a different number of chromosomes because, you can see it's the same chromosomes, but two chromosomes fused end to end somehow, and that would have produced, the first in our line, basically, because that individual probably wouldn't have been able to breed very easily with others in the pan genus, the chimpanzee genus. We would be really speculating, okay, so how did that individual find another individual that they could have bred with, and how does this chromosomal fusion occur? That's kind of a mystery. I mean, we see that it did happen, so there's got to be a way for it to happen, right? And unfortunately, some people try to latch onto that particular thing and say, see, that couldn't have happened naturally, so it must have been aliens or some nonsense. They jump to this ridiculous conclusion with no evidence whatsoever. The only thing we know for certain about it is that chromosomal fusion occurred. And we know that DNA has amazing abilities. It's not your average molecule, right? So who's to say there isn't some kind of property of DNA that sometimes it does this to try out a new mix, right? To maybe it's something that kind of got coded in the DNA over the billions of years, perhaps trillions of years, which people are like, wait a minute, the Earth's only 4 point. Yeah, we might get into that. Anyway, so if this is a property of DNA, in order to take one species and kind of turn it into two to increase the potential for survival, right? Because one of those two species may die out, but the other one may not. It just, you don't want all your eggs in one basket, so it kind of makes sense that there may be a process that causes chromosomal fusions on rare occasions to force a speciation event, turn one species into two. So that leads to the uncomfortable possibility that maybe we had one female that was producing these fused chromosome individuals, and therefore they were fertile. The siblings were fertile with each other, and therefore we basically see a situation where humans were born out of almost exclusively incestuous breeding in the very beginning, the first in our line after the divergence from the chimps. So, it is what it is. Paul says, people buried dead, possibly cross-between primate people, they definitely have a place on the scale of evolution, but where that place, I have no idea. Yeah. Chad Bunger's in the house. He says, dude, you need to listen to the Brothers of the Serpent podcast. It would help you to understand that we as humans know nothing. There's only what you've been told and theories. Well, I can agree with that to an extent, but having studied a lot of these subjects quite a bit in college and independently, and a lifelong, just best I can describe it as a insatiable thirst to learn things, to the extent that I think it really has well, like, I don't think I could ever, like, be in a marriage. It wouldn't work. So I think it's detrimental socially, but what I'm saying is that I see a lot of people turning down certain sciences that I've studied enough to know that they don't have a leg to stand on. Now, there are certain sciences you will hear me criticize, like quantum physics, because there are some very real holes in it. And but I don't know. I might check them out though and see what they're saying. But I've seen so many over the years decades, I've seen so many people come up with all this stuff, trying to tear down evolution, trying to prove young Earth and all this stuff, and none of it holds any water. None of it's legit science. It's always just confirmation bias, and it just doesn't. So if that's what they're talking about, I mean, you know, if they're trying to disprove evolution or disprove the age of the Earth, I can already be fairly certain that they are failing miserably, even though they think that they're brilliant and clever, and some of these people, I think, know damn good and well what the truth is, but you know, they're selling something, so they're playing to a certain crowd. They need to keep their story straight, you know. And there's certain people that thirst for anything that gives them their confirmation bias, you know, and it's very sad. Sharon Guy, he says, "Cowboy doing good. Tired. Been at the farmer's market all day. Got some goodies." We do have a drunk pirate. Squatching Cowboy, much better. Flu bug. But now the arthritis is working overtime. Chawa, very angry, hairy midget wolf that speaks Spanish. Well, I don't know if they speak Spanish. But yeah. Mr. Lee says, Mr. Pat Turner may have seen a pterosaur. He talked strange bird-like creature on it. Yeah, I saw that. But he didn't seem to be saying he thought it was a pterosaur, though. But it was definitely something strange. Oh, Chad's heading to the hot tub. Kong Mega Sasquatch. Maybe. Let's see. Mr. Lee wants to join Chad in the hot tub, it seems. Hobbs is in the house. Welcome. So, what do y'all think? I don't think there's any flat earthers in here, but there could be, or not flat earthers, I'm sorry, young earthers. I'm seeing so much flat earth stuff lately that I'm like, it's kind of stuck in my head. There was that issue. There was another thing that they were trying to the soft tissue preservation in a dinosaur, and they were trying to say, see, that proves that there's no way soft tissue could have been preserved for millions of years, but it seems that maybe it could be. Instead of them saying, wow, that's amazing, we got all this evidence that these things are millions of years old, so we need to learn how it's possible that soft tissue could be preserved for all that time. And they've been working on that, and they figured out some stuff, and it appears to have something to do with the iron and linking up and all that stuff, that it could essentially preserve stuff. I mean, I don't know why it's so hard to believe that there could be ways that nature could preserve something for an extremely long period of time. I mean, how many bugs have you looked at stuck in amber, you know? I mean, it's just, you know, and of course fossils are everywhere, but so there must be a way, and, you know, and it appears that this iron idea may be what it was. Hobbs says, Lockbeard, sorry mate, one here, but I appreciate others' opinions. Well, awesome. Well, hopefully you heard something useful. You know, I don't have a whole lot more really on it to say. I mean, I think I've said what the main points are. That survival of a pterosaur doesn't prove young Earth. It just shows that something else survived the extinction that we haven't been able to detect yet. You know, it's not amazing that they survived. You know, I mean, any more so than it is amazing that crocodiles and turtles survived. What's amazing is that if they are here, that they've been able to stay out of sight so well. That's all there is to that. And with the footprints, I mean, the footprints, if a person, like, you know, don't listen to the guy giving you a presentation about the footprints, try to say this is human, and look into it yourself, and you'll see where they're seeing human footprints. It's just a messed up footprint in a line of dinosaur tracks. You don't see a line of, you know, left, right, human footprints coming through there. You know, it's a footprint. And you know, and they're saying, well, he stepped in the dinosaur footprint. Well, okay, perhaps, but where's the rest of the line of human prints? They're not there. There's no case of that. So that one's gone. The carbon dating that so many of them bring up, and the testing they did on that dinosaur bone, that's blown out of the water by the fact that they used carbon dating to test something that was way too old to be tested with carbon dating. So we're running out of young Earth points. And then, of course, the interpretation that the Earth is that young, you know, look into how they come up with that number out of the Bible, and you know, it doesn't actually say that anywhere. It was an extrapolation somebody made, and a bunch of people kind of ran with it. And so it's just not in there. Hobbes' great thing about this family in this form is that everyone has their own formula and an opinion. There are no experts. We don't know crap, and they're all just educated guesses and theories. Later, cowboy. I mean, I'm glad you did bring up the word theory, though. There's a little bit of an issue with the use of the word theory. Satch talked about this the other day, and I've mentioned it before, I'm sure. I think I did. That a lot of people are using the word theory when they really mean hypothesis, and in many cases, educated guess at best. And in some cases, it's just a stupid guess or stupid idea. It's not a theory, you know, because a theory is something that has a body of evidence. And as an example, gravitational theory, right? You know, you wouldn't say, well, gravity is just theory, because anyway, everyone, you know, can see that shit falls. Gravity is just a theory, but shit still falls. A lot of people are using the word theory wrong, and it's just gotten stuck into the way we talk in some of our societies today. And we need to really pull that back. they're not talking about a theory. They're talking about a hypothesis that, a hypothesis is, doesn't really have the body of knowledge yet. That's probably the better word to use. There's a lot of sciences that they refer to as theory, and it's because they got evidence supports that theory, and until someone can come up with a better theory, that's kind of their best information. But it does have supporting evidence. So if that's one of the things I hope that I can influence people to stop doing, is using the word theory when they're not actually talking about a theory. I hear people say that all the time about evolutionary biology. Well, it's just a theory. A theory with a whole lot of evidence behind it, and it's such an overwhelming amount of evidence that you pretty much can't deny evolution. You just can't. The evidence is too big. Now you got these people saying, well, all we got to do is find one piece of evidence that negates. Well, if you got an overwhelming body of evidence like we have for evolution, then you probably need to look for how that piece of data or evidence that you think disproves it, what its true origin is. The whole parts thing, the out of place artifacts. They try to say, we got these artifacts and they're places they shouldn't be, and they prove that y'all's testing of age is wrong and all that stuff. Well, maybe we need to figure out how that isn't what you think it is. How, I think there was a case where there was an object that was like man-made, and it was dropped into some rubble or something, and the rock stuck together. There was calcium and then water, and it stuck back together. Well, you formed a new chunk of rock, but it's made out of these smaller pieces of rock that are very, very old, millions of years old. And so if you test it, those pieces of rock, well, they're going to come up, 50 million years old. But if you test the artifact that's stuck in there, and you can get an accurate sample, uncontaminated sample, that it's going to come up with the age of the artifact. And they're trying to say, see, it couldn't be in this 50 million year old rock if this thing is only 1,000 years old. Yes, it could. I just described how it could. But they want so badly to find evidence that proves that the whole isotopic aging methods, the radiometric aging, is wrong. And but there's just too much evidence that it's correct. Now, you can't always get a good sample. Sometimes you get contaminations in the samples, and you can't look at that. See, it doesn't work. No, there was something wrong with the sample, or something. Something went wrong. Looks like Paul's got to go. He says, good night, all. Got to hit rack early. Start tomorrow. Good show, Lockbeard, y'all. Thank you, Paul. We'll see you somewhere. Sharon says, good night. Sleep well. Thanks so much. Does anybody have anything to add about the subject? we really, things like this young Earth thing and the flat Earth thing and all this. I mean, these things are infecting the mind of young people who are intelligent and could make great contributions to science if they didn't get indoctrinated with this BS. And to me, this is a horrible crime. You have sabotaged someone's life and their potential. You've sabotaged the entire species. You could have, messed up our next Nikola Tesla and sent them on a wild goose chase, and maybe one day they'll snap out of it, but they might not. So if you got people out there brainwashing people with this nonsense, to me, they've committed a crime. You can't have someone teaching this to children. You're sabotaging their education. You're damaging their lives. Mr. Lee says, I got a 6-pack of Estrella Dam beer brewed in Barcelona. It tastes great. Cheers, Lockbeard. Well, enjoy. I don't drink, so I can't drink with you, but I mean, I could, but I just don't like to drink. It's not because of anything. I wasn't an alcoholic or anything like that, but I just don't like to drink. Like to keep my mind clear, and it makes me feel bad nowadays. It just doesn't work for me. I did when I was like in my 20s for the most part. College, social situations kind of thing. You know how it is. But nowadays, like, it's hard enough to keep my mind clear as it is. Like, if I'm not eating, like we've talked about, keto or strictly carnivore in my case. Like I did today, I didn't eat correctly at all today, so my blood sugar does crazy shit, and my brain just kind of, shuts off, or sometimes I'll go to sleep. Could be a diabetic coma, but I'm just gonna say I go to sleep because my blood sugar dips really low. But you enjoy. So, something else about dinosaurs I've seen out there. This really isn't about young Earth, but where they did that speculative kind of a dummy or whatever they made. They were trying to imagine what would dinosaurs look like. And I think they were trying to, some kind of raptor or something, I don't know. They were trying to speculate what it would look like if it evolved into an intelligent species. Well, what I was looking at was, I wish I had a picture. I in the future, if I can put more time into YouTube, if YouTube becomes, income and all that stuff, I'll be able to throw up pictures of some of the crap I'm talking about. It certainly make things better, but it just takes time and all, to do all that, get it set up. But it was shaped basically like a human shaped. It was upright. It had a humanoid shape to it. And so why does an intelligent species have to be shaped like a human? Danny's checking out. He's got to walk the dog. Because I don't think that if the It's an interesting thought. The dinosaur age was millions of years, and there could have been multiple civilizations that arose for all we know. We the one thing is certain is most of what existed back then we can't see. We're only seeing these little parts. So there could have been civilizations that we've completely missed. Especially when you're looking at, the continents have moved since then. you know, uh, Things have eroded. New rock layers have been created. I mean, it's possible that intelligent species could have arose all over the place, and we just haven't been able to detect them yet. Or maybe we have, and it gets swept under the rug for some reason, because the government likes to hide everything from us. Why they would hide it, I don't know. I think they like to make us feel isolated, though. And if you feel like your species is the only one that's ever been, the only intelligent species that's ever been on Earth, that adds to your feeling of isolation. That isolation theme comes up way more often than you may think. I mean, we saw a lot of it last year, actually, with the whole thing, right? Or, but like the Catholic Church back in the day, trying to control people and they were trying to make people more isolated from each other, because people can't resist tyrannical government as well when they're isolated. But yeah, I mean, these dinosaur civilizations, sure, they could have existed. There's no reason to think that it's impossible. But I don't think they would have looked like that dummy they made. It took a very specific set of environmental factors to shape a chimpanzee into, a chimp-like creature, an ape, into humans. To think that the right set of circumstances would form a dinosaur into roughly that shape and make it intelligent as well. I mean, you know what I mean? It's so unlikely. It's far more likely that, if an intelligent species formed, that it would be just shaped like a dinosaur or have some other shape to it. There's no reason to think it has to be humanoid. A lot of sci-fi is experimenting with that and showing intelligent species that are not humanoid, but people have been watching too much Star Trek, and they've been convinced that aliens have to look, basically humanoid for some reason. Humans tend to anthropomorphize things in general anyway. But we got to learn to think outside of that, and look at dolphins and whales, elephants. These species could technically be of an equivalent intelligence to us, but we just haven't learned how to communicate with them well enough to realize that. And we don't tend to realize that an intelligent species doesn't necessarily have to build shit or tear up the ecosystem or build roads or create landfills or cars, or just because you're an intelligent species, it doesn't necessarily mean you create all that crap. It doesn't necessarily mean you're materialistic. But because that's the way we are, and we tend to anthropomorphize things, we assume that an intelligent species is going to do all that shit. Now, if someone accepts that dolphins and whales are very intelligent animals, they have to take one good look at them and say, well, they're intelligent, but they got flippers. They don't got hands. So you're going to have a really hard time, building stuff and creating tools. But they're still really, really smart. Sharon says she don't drink anymore either. And she's taken out for the night. Good night, Sharon. So, if there's no other comments about young Earth, I might mention some other things that have come up recently here and there on the internet. As you know, I live in Oklahoma, and everybody heard a while back that the Representative Justin Humphrey tried to float a bill that would create a Sasquatch trapping season. It wasn't hunting, it was trapping. Still seeing people not making that distinction. I think they really need to. He was trying to create a scenario where people would be potentially trying to capture alive Bigfoot, which I think most of us would agree would be an extraordinarily bad idea. So this came up on another show the other night, and I was trying to express what I thought of it. They made the point, and I knew this, that it was really all about tourism. And I guess there's like some things that have happened as a result of that, and all this stuff, and the implication being there's been some positive outcomes of it, even though the bill did not pass. There was no way there was no way this bill was going to pass, right? Most of the House was probably don't believe in Bigfoot and thinks it's absolutely ridiculous. And even though I think they would have recognized that he was just trying to stimulate tourism for his area, they still would have voted against it, because I kind of think it would bring up the whole, if they did pass it, you would end up with this situation where people are like, so you're acknowledging they exist, right? So I'm trying not to say things wrong in regards to this, but I've said before that I think the evidence that looks fairly credible so far about Sasquatch indicates that they are Homo sapiens, that they are the same species as us, not just a relic hominid, not just another species in our genus, but the same species as us, just a race of people who are big and hairy, and really it's not that extraordinary, like I've used the dog comparison before. It's not that extraordinary. They're not that much bigger, and becoming hairier is not that hard. It's not like they had to, it's not like something had to evolve wings or something. Hair already exists all over the human body. If you just a very short period of time, just a few thousand years, living, outdoors without fire, without clothing, dealing with the cold, you're probably going to develop more prominent body hair very quickly. It's an easy change to occur in a short period of time, right? And it's not that different, people are focusing too much on that rather than looking at the morphology of the foot, the morphology of the entire body, the behavior. A lot of people looking into its face, or they're like, look, it looked like a person, looked human. So forget the hair. A lot of people like if say I shave my beard, there's going to be a certain percentage of people that when they encounter me, they may not recognize me, right? Now, some people will because they focus on the eyes, but some people focus on beards and stuff. So there's a degree of that going on. But a lot of people, if they see a big hairy figure like that, they're going to think monkey. They're going to think ape. They can't. I can't say they can't. They have a hard time seeing past the hair. You got to see past the hair. But coming back to the bill, because I think this is one of the reasons why I'm against the entire the bill is look, if you said I gotta be careful how I word things here. If you can't have it, you can't even for tourism's sake propose a bill that implies that you can have a trapping season for a race of people. You just can't. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that still got it in their head that they can do this, and they you have this other party, because the government of the state of Oklahoma doesn't have a trapping season. Okay, it didn't get past committee. It's not a legitimate thing, but there's people putting a bunch of money on this, like way more than the state proposal was. So now you got people who think that there's a Bigfoot trapping season. There are so many ways this could go wrong. And somebody could get hurt without Sasquatch even actually being out there. But most of us are pretty sure they're out there. So what happens when somebody creates a trap and they actually get a Bigfoot in that trap, and they're out there trying to figure out a way to get it out of there and tranquilize it or whatever they do, and his friends show up and they're mad. You cage one of our tribesmen, and this is an act of war. Somebody could get killed. Or what if somebody's kid is out in the woods and comes up across somebody's contraption and gets hurt by the contraption, or maybe they do get trapped in a pretty solid cage and the kid can't get, maybe even if the kid has a cell phone, he can't get a signal out, and whoever put that trap out there doesn't check on it, for a couple weeks, and now you got a dead kid in a cage. I mean, there's just so many ways. Humans will find a way to screw up. You just got to give them a little nudge, and they'll find a way. Somebody will find a way. And of course I don't like that one of our representatives was wasting my tax dollars by wasting his time to do this, to mess with this nonsense. So yeah, I'm absolutely totally against even doing it as a tourism scam or whatever you want to call it. There's so much potential for something to go wrong, and if it does, you'll probably hear me saying, "I told you so," and people are going to be like, "Oh, you're a prick." Somebody's got. It's just every time there's a disaster, and I try to tell people, well, there are ways in how it's our fault. Oh, you're an asshole. People died and blah. Well, do you want to prevent people from fucking dying in the future? Are you willing to do something about it to prevent disasters like we've seen from happening again? You're going to get all freaking bent out of shape because I'm using the opportunity to tell you, look, we can do something to prevent this shit from happening again. But people don't want to listen. They don't want to hear. They don't understand half of what I'm trying to tell them. So, what do? Humans will keep making the same mistakes over and over again. We keep having forest fires. I mean, didn't we learn back in, I think it was the 80s, where, they kept putting out every fire. Oh, we can't have forest fires. Forest fires are always bad. No, they're not. They are not always bad. You need a fire to come through and burn out some of the dead material every so often in certain ecosystems. Otherwise, that dead material builds up, and then one day it catches fire, and you are unable to control it because there's too much dead material. And now, because there's so much, because you put out every fire, it kills the live trees. And now you've completely destroyed the forest instead of just scorching trees, but they generally survive for the most part. But you got these, environmental groups out west here, who are still like, oh, you can't be doing controlled burns. Well, you need to do controlled burns, because then you're going to have a disaster again. You're creating a scenario where there's going to be a disaster again. Actively. Or people's homes are going to burn down. People are going to get caught in the fire and die. Firefighters are going to die. I mean, if I bring it up, people get all mad. You're an asshole. People died. Why? Because I'm trying to prevent it from happening again. There is absolutely no excuse for people to die in a forest fire anymore. It is totally within our control to prevent it. But people are not willing to do what needs to be done. You tell them when there's not a forest fire going on, they're just totally, tuning you out. They're too worried about hitting the drive-through window and going home and watching some freaking whatever bullshit's on TV nowadays, Kardashians or whatever. I don't even know. I haven't had TV in years. It's a reason, because it's all bullshit. But if you say something when there is a disaster going on, they get out bent out of shape. They're like, people died. You're an asshole. Well, when are you going to start listening? I can make it where no one dies from a forest fire ever again. I mean, not personally, but if people did what they needed to do. Good evening, folks. I'm late. Hey, Remiel. Well, you're not late. You know, it's all right. Nobody's gonna be mad. Floods, the same thing. People say, well, floods are natural. They have no. I mean, yes, to a certain extent, yeah, floods happen, but there's been a number of things that human activity has done that makes the floods way worse than they should be naturally. And but part of the problem is we got people living in flood zones. You know, and you could totally build a home in a flood zone that would not be affected by the flood. There's a way. It'd be kind of expensive, but there's ways. But like the Katrina disaster, you know, vast area of the city below sea level, below lake level, below river level. It's like, you know, levees and shit. And you're surprised that it flooded one day? Really? Got people sitting on the top of their house. Like, you just because... You know, Mother Nature functions over long time scales, longer than your life. You know, sooner or later she'll find a way to screw you over. So you need to be as prepared as you can for those scenarios. But you know, you got people living in you know, in trailer homes, and then a tornado comes along and they lose everything. They lose everything, or they die. Well, you could have not died by getting your ass in your tornado shelter. Oh, you didn't have a tornado shelter. Well, you fucked up. You know, I'm sorry, but you live in Tornado Alley. You should have a tornado shelter at the very least. But why is your house above ground? You know, if you can afford to build a home, you can build underground homes that are very nice, and they're better. They're better for other reasons. You know, a tornado is not going to harm your house if it's underground. Your bills are going to be way less because of the constant temperature underground. So, you know, it's like 55 degrees or something like that. So it stays naturally cool in the summer, and it doesn't get really cold in the winter. So it don't take much to heat 55 degrees to a comfortable temperature for most people. But it gets down below zero sometimes around here. It takes a lot more energy to heat it up. So it just makes... In the long run, it will cost you less money. Your house is never going to get completely destroyed by a tornado. Your life's not going to be threatened. And, you know, the cost of building a home underground, it probably is a little bit more most of the time, but not that much. You know? Preventable. Totally preventable, though. But tornado hits a town, everyone rebuilds the exact same bullshit twig buildings that they've always built. What are you going to do? Remiel says, Mr. Lee, I woke up too late to catch the start of the show. Mr. Lee says, Lockbeard, sounds like you got a rattlesnake in the van. You're probably hearing the cicadas. It's they're out and making all that damn noise, getting their groove on. Yeah, trust me, there's no rattlesnake in here. If there's ever a rattlesnake in the van, it's probably a pet. Or it's more likely a pet than anything. I don't keep snakes for pets anymore, but I used to keep lots of them. Lots and lots of snakes. Remiel, I think Paul, Sharon, and Hobbs have all left. I think Danny's left too. No, he's still here. Yeah, I guess they're all still logged in or whatever on their phones or something, but they're not hanging in the chat. Oops, didn't mean to plug that in, but there it is. Mr. Lee asks, what snake makes a good pet? Kind of depends on what you're looking for. You know, if you want a snake that's safe, like the king snakes, at least around here, typically you catch a king snake, they're very, very mild-mannered, like straight out of the wild. Like most king snakes I've caught barely even tried to bite. But like a rat snake, they're like real vicious. They'll tame down though and be a perfectly good pet. But out of the wild, if you catch one out of the wild, they're typically very vicious. They don't got any venom, but you know, I've been bitten by them, you know, plenty of times. But a lot of people are so freaked out by snakes. Like even a big one, it bites you, you'll bleed some, but I don't even feel anything really. I mean, I feel it bit me, but there's hardly any pain, and you know, their teeth are just tiny, so small. I certainly wouldn't recommend most people keep a venomous snake, just because, you know, an accident could eventually happen. I mean, hopefully your cage is good enough to hold it, but you never know. I would usually recommend people do not get something from a foreign country, or you end up with a mess like you have in Florida and some places where something happens, the snakes get loose and they start breeding in the wild. Snakes got like different pythons and stuff that are from other countries, but because Florida's weather is getting into the, you know, it's pretty warm down there, and hardly ever freezes in a lot of the state, and so those snakes can live and thrive down there, and unfortunately they create havoc for the native species. So generally I wouldn't recommend people get something from a foreign country. Now where you're at, if your snake gets loose, you get a Burmese python, if it gets loose, it's probably going to die, you know, especially come winter. Where I'm at, it's probably going to die, but in Florida they can live. Probably best to get a captive bred snake though. It's already tame, it wasn't removed from the wild. You know, it's better to leave snakes in the wild. I've taken hundreds of snakes out of the wild in my life. So, that being said, but nowadays, if I see a snake, I just, you know, what's up? And I go on about my business. Especially now that I've lived a minimalist life and gradually got down smaller and smaller with, you know, what I have and what I live in to this point. Oh, a room in a van to be keeping a snake. That being said, though, there is a girl. She has a YouTube channel. She lives the van life, and she has a pet snake that lives with her in her van. As I recall, I don't think you guys have any wild snakes where you're at, though, do you? You might. You know, because I'm most familiar with what's here where I live, but so you're going to be buying something that's foreign no matter what, I imagine. So you have to know that a lot of people are keeping their snake in a just too small of a cage. You're putting this animal in a prison. I mean, keep that in mind. You're putting it in a prison. So, I recommend that people be mindful of that. And if you're going to keep a pet snake or a pet anything, provide for it much more than a lot of people have been. Putting a snake in a little cage or a little aquarium, or you got them a hot rock, you got them a water bowl, and you throw food in there, but it's a wild animal. Ultimately, it's supposed to be free, and so give it a really big cage if you're gonna do it. If you're, for the most part, you're probably looking at a constrictor of some kind. And you got people out there, they recommend, don't put live food in there because then the snake could get hurt and stuff like that. I'm like, look, the snake's built to kill and eat. Watch and make sure the snake gets the job done and all that, but don't take that away from them. I've always, for the most part, given them live food, and if you're going to do that, it's going to, of course, you're feeding the snake at all, you're going to be paying for the food all the time, right? So what I recommend, I almost got set up to do it towards the end of my snake keeping days, but then I end up not getting another snake and stopped doing it. But you grow your own food, right, for the snake, and keep rodents. Probably the best rodent you can get is gerbils. Not rats, not mice, gerbils. They cost more, but gerbil lives in arid regions in the wild. They don't do a lot of urination. They conserve water in their bodies and stuff. So way less of the smelliness factor, right? Now that being said, you need to make some kind of wire cage that the gerbil can't eat on the water bottle. You put a plastic water bottle, in a normal holder inside a gerbil cage, they'll bite that water bottle and dump it all inside on their bedding. Two, you don't have to buy bedding. Just when you empty out the old bedding, throw in a newspaper. The gerbils will chew and chew and chew until it turns into some nice fluffy bedding. So cage the water bottle. Just give them a newspaper. You don't have to buy bedding. Whatever you do not put a new female in with any other gerbil if she hasn't been properly introduced, though. She will start slaughtering. There will be a bloodbath. Almost guaranteed. That's just the way they are. I had introduction cages built where there was a wire cage in between. So you put the new gerbil in one side and the other one's in the other side. Give them time to get used to each other, and then you can put them together in a normal cage. If you don't want them breeding too fast, I mean, that's one of the things, like with mice and rats, they have more babies, and gerbils don't have quite as many typically. But if you want to keep it toned down, like because you could easily get more than what you can handle, get the pied version where they have white and a color. The reason that gene because you can see it readily, right? It's easy to see. That gene what that gene does, it also kills 25% of the fetuses in the womb for gerbils. So they have smaller litters by about 25%. It's useful information if you're going to breed gerbils. But that's what I recommend if someone gets a snake, because you're going to end up paying so much money buying dead rodents or even live rodents all the time for this snake, and it's a pain in the ass. You're better off having a couple gerbil cages with breeding pairs in them, and then make you an introduction cage, which all it really is it's a doubled cage with a wire in between. Or better yet, make you a big old cage that has wire dividers, and try to keep them introduced. You got to do an introductory period with the females. You just have to. They're vicious little bitches. So I don't know. Hopefully there was some useful information there. Yeah, a lot of people like people like those big snakes. I got a story from college about damn snakes, because I had a pet snake. Well, I had a couple pet snakes in there, and this other guy had pet snakes, and we actually worked for the dorms, so we're supposed to enforce the rule of no pets. But our boss was kind of cool with it, but everything was fine. But there was this guy that moved in one day, and he liked to be whatever you're good at, he would have a story about how he was better at it, right? Doesn't matter what it was. So my buddy, he was a track star. So this guy had stories about how he was better, and my buddy was like, "Well, let's go race." And he's like, "I can't. My knees are bad now." He have an excuse why he couldn't perform whatever it was. Well, I guess he was trying to figure out, because I don't give a shit about sports, right? So I guess he was looking for a way to be better than me at whatever it was that he perceived me to be, whatever, good at. Or so he got a snake, a 10-foot snake, some kind of python. Well, this is a dormitory. You're in a little room that's about as big as a jail cell, and you had a roommate who was terrified of snakes. Man, the shit hit the fan. Ramil says, some here can handle cobras like a domestic pet. Yeah, you can tame down any snake, even poisonous ones. I don't recommend it. The snake can still have a bad day, but you can. I had people when I was a kid tell me you can't tame snapping turtles, because I was catching all kinds of turtles, including snapping turtles. Well, I tamed alligator snapping turtles just fine. You just got to work with them and be careful, because a bigger snapping turtle will take your finger off. You can tame snapping turtles. I've done it. It's not a problem. Do I recommend people do it? No, because you can get hurt. We have adders and grass snakes. Yeah, you might want to go for the grass snake. It'd be the easiest thing, because you probably see one every so often. You can just capture it. Yeah, they're venomous. Michael Haywood's here. Welcome. Yeah, we kind of got on a weird tangent. So, yeah. You got comments about young Earth stuff? Go ahead, Michael. Let's see here. Good advice, Lockbeard, for snake fanciers. Thank you. Yeah. I've had hundreds of snakes. I've probably handled thousands of snakes in my lifetime. But as I've gotten older, I just kind of leave them alone. And I still stop on the road sometimes if I see a box turtle on the road. I'll try and stop and get them off the road and take them somewhere. If I can, I'll take them somewhere away from the road. Like I always have at least 1 5-gallon bucket sitting in the van somewhere, so I can toss that turtle in there and then take them out in the country away from a road. Because I've gotten out of the car to get a turtle off the road, and then the next guy coming down the road swerves to run over the turtle on purpose. And these box turtles, their numbers are going down. Their conservation status has been reduced again, and because they're losing so much habitat, and they can't move very fast, and you got people out there trying to kill them for fun. So I still try to save them. Ramiel says, I used to catch a variety of snakes whenever I chanced upon them. Well, mostly garden snakes. I caught one in the mountains, grayish white with red bands. Yeah, I don't know what kind that would be. Not familiar with all the snakes in the world, but cool. Snakes are kind of a good one thing. Dealing with snakes my whole life, I've had people, like a lot of people, like pretty much any snake they see with a pattern on it, they think it's a copperhead. Any snake they see in the water, they think is a water moccasin. And I've been in circumstances where, I've had people who were completely not willing to listen to me when I was trying to tell them that's not what that is. There was one time when I was working at a place. We were in a parking lot, and there was a small snake, probably alive. It probably wasn't any longer than that. Its head was completely gone. It was completely flattened in the parking lot. But I'm familiar enough with the species of snakes in the area that I knew exactly what it was. And, there was still enough of it there to make a positive ID. This guy was swearing up and down, that's a copperhead. And I'm like, no, it's not a copperhead. It's just not. It was a Great Plains rat snake is what it was. And he's like, I've been a hunter my whole life. I know copperhead when I see it. And that's just with snakes. And we're dealing with that kind of attitude in Sasquatch situations. If a person is going to swear them down, they know what they're talking about. About something that we know exists. What are they going to do when they, say they saw something in the woods and they know what it was, and you know what I mean? Michael says with snakes, it's not if you'll be bit, it's when. Well, I mean, it depends. I used to keep hognose snakes. It's one of my favorite native species of snakes here. They're pretty cool. They absolutely. So this kind of proves what you're saying a little bit when I get into this story. But the way these snakes behave is like when you first come across one in the wild, it'll hiss really loud. And it'll strike at you, but it's not trying to bite you. It's just trying to scare you. It's hissing really loud. It's striking at you. The front several inches of its neck area and its head can flatten out, kind of like a cobra does, but it doesn't stand up. It stays, down on the ground, but it flattens out to make itself look bigger. Makes a lot of noise. Sometimes they'll rattle their tail. It's all an act. And if you keep messing with them, Usually, when they figure out that they're not scaring you off, they'll flip over on their back, they'll squirm around like they're dying, and they'll stop moving with their mouth open and their tongue hanging out, and they'll play dead. It's just an actor. It's all an act. So they're usually not trying to bite you. Now that being said, I had a female that I caught that had a very cantankerous attitude. She just had a, usually you can kind of make a generalized comment, like I said a while ago about king snakes. King snakes are typically behave practically tame, straight out of the wild, whereas a rat snake is typically very vicious. But that doesn't mean every individual is going to be that way. And I had this female hognose snake who just had a bad attitude. Now, she never bit me, but she'd always hiss at you when you came in the room, and just, she just had a pissy attitude. Now, I used to take these hognose snakes to school. I had this male, and he was the nicest, one of the nicest snakes you could ever have. He'd usually get a toad when we went to school, and the kids would look at him and want to hold him. Anyway, I'd held, because they only eat toads. Like a lot of them, they won't even eat a frog. It has to be a toad. A lot of people don't seem to know that there's a difference. This snake is a very specialized feeder. It's specialized for toads. Now, some of them will eat frogs, but like this one I was holding this day, he would not eat a frog, period. It had to be a toad, period. Well, I was holding him in one of my classes, and I'd held a toad earlier, so I had to smell a toad on my hand, and I wasn't paying attention to him. He, just sitting there, and he had him in, he smelled toad, saw my thumb move, and decided that my thumb was a toad. And I didn't really feel it, right, until he got up to here. And he was like, well, I can't get, then I felt him once he got up to here. And he has these little tiny teeth. They're so tiny, and, that they do break the skin, they do draw blood, but that you don't really feel it. That's the thing about most of these snakes. You don't really feel anything. But, so I guess technically I got bit, but it wasn't because he thought he was eating a toad. They're not, sometimes they can make a mistake. Remiel says, I had a snappy turtle too. It came in our yard from a flood. Yep. Remiel says, snakes usually scamper off upon feeling the vibrations in the ground when someone approaches. Yeah, a lot of them will try to get away. I always hear these people will say stuff about animals that they don't. They tell me, oh, that snake will chase you. The snake will chase you. And I'm like, well, I've been chasing snakes my whole life, and I've never had a snake chase me. They're trying to get away. I can only guess that people run across these snakes and they get them cornered somehow, and the snake's trying to get away, and the person perceives they're being chased. No, the snake just wants to get away from you. So something else must be going on there, because you're telling me this, and I'm your local snake expert, and no snake has ever chased me. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. You're 100 times bigger than this animal. He does not want to mess with you. He wants to get away from you. You represent a potential threat to him, that you may kill him. So, but people still tell these stories. They don't know. They don't know what they're talking about. And Now, that being said, there may be your rare case of a snake that tries to go for someone, but I've never experienced it. So, yeah, you missed, Michael, you missed all the young Earth talk. I mean, I think it's pretty much a destroyed concept, you would think. But, these folks have, because they've latched onto the idea that the earth is young, even though it doesn't say that in the Bible. It doesn't say that. You can interpret that to what you read there to mean whatever, really. But because someone interpreted it that way, a certain group of people, believers, have latched on to the idea and can't, and because because they've preached it, they are trying to save face now, because science can tear apart any of these claims. Like those footprints. Anyone that actually looks into this instead of listening to the people trying to push the agenda will see that those footprints are clearly not human. They're not. They're just dinosaur footprints that just happened to lay down weird. Maybe something else did step in the track and mess it up, but you can see where it's a trackway, left, right, the dinosaur's footprints, and there's something that they think looks like a human footprint in one of those tracks. But there's not a continuation of the line of human footprints, right? Where's the next human footprint? It's not there in any case. So it's another, kind of a pareidolia thing, a confirmation bias thing. They want so badly to prove that humans walked with dinosaurs that they're not letting themselves see that this isn't actually evidence of that at all. So, hey, it'd be cool if it was true that humans did walk with dinosaurs. It would be really cool if pterosaurs are still here. But that does not prove the Earth is young. It just doesn't. It just proves that something else survived the extinction besides all the other species that survived. Plenty of things survived the extinction that didn't change very much between then and now. Crocodilians, basically the same thing. They changed a little, but not very much. Same for the coelacanth. Same for turtles. Like the the green turtle or whatever in the ocean. It is basically the same body plan. It's basically the same. It's just a little smaller. What's up, Bigfoot Anon? You're late, man. You missed the good part. Well, we're at 4 minutes till the hour. Central Florida Bigfoot should be coming on in a few minutes. I encourage everyone to go over there and conduct a LOCKBEARD raid on them, fly them pirate flags, and I'm going to try, and I know I went over 2 hour mark in the past. I'm going to try not to do that. I don't want to ride up on Matt's show like that. So hopefully, if I ever look like I'm, not cognizant of what time it is, say it. Just tell me. I might lose track of time, and because I don't want to ride up into. I picked this time on purpose to not ride up, because 8 o'clock might have been a better time, but Central Florida Bigfoot's on at that time, so I'm not going to do that. 8 o'clock my time. 2 a.m. for Mr. Lee. I think 2 a.m. So, yeah, I'm sure there's some other stuff. There was some other stuff this week that I was thinking about saying some things about, but we're out of time. Cheese Freak coming in at the last minute. Welcome. We're shutting her down. I'm going to go over and watch Central Florida Bigfoot, and hope to see the rest of y'all there. Thanks for coming, and I hope I gave some people some things to think about in regards to this young Earth thing.